Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Network Seminar Series hosted by the Center for Networked Intelligence at the ECE and RBCCPS IISc. It's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Professor Alexandre Proutiere. He will be speaking on learning with minimal human feedback. Professor Alex is a professor in the decision and control systems at the KTH Royal Institute of Technology, Sweden. Before joining KTH in 2011, he was a researcher at Microsoft Research and a research engineer at France Telecom R&D. He was invited lecturer and researcher at the Computer Science Department, ENS Paris. His current research interests include probability, optimization, and machine learning. Educations and awards: PhD in Applied Mathematics from École Polytechnique, graduated in Mathematics from École Normale Supérieure, engineering degree from Telecom Paris, engineer from Corpus de Mainz. Awards are ACM Sigmatrix Rising Star Award in 2009, ACM Best Paper Award at Sigmatrix 2004 and 2010, and MobiHub 2009. ACM Sigmatrix Test of Time Award in 2025, and recipient of an ERC Consolidator Grant on 2012 to 2017. Over to you, Professor.
Okay, thanks. So thanks a lot for the invitation and for the introduction. I am very honored and happy to be here in IISc for maybe the third or fourth time. I don't remember exactly, but it's always a pleasure to come here. Today I'm going to talk about learning with minimum human feedback. This is a joint work with my PhD student William Réveillard, my former postdoc Richard Combe, and a master student, Vassilios Saketos, who actually proposed the problem himself. So he was he's a very good master student. And we started implementing the algorithm. And then after that, I decided to kind of study the problem theoretically. And this is what I'm going to present to you today. As you probably know, if you read the news, human beings are not good for our planet. So the goal of our research should be to remove humans from any loop. I hope that you agree with this. But the problem is that human feedback has been essential in many fields, generating data to train models. So essentially, we use a lot of humans to annotate data. That was early on when you do supervised learning, for example. Human feedback has been instrumental in reinforcement learning with human feedback to align LLMs so that LLMs are kind of aligned to what human beings think that a good answer is. And what I'm going to talk about is how to transfer expert knowledge to large language models using human feedback, but we'll try to minimize this feedback. So the problem is that the human feedback is expensive. It's a high cost in all these, let's say, the machine learning pipeline. And so the questions that we want to ask in general is, can we remove humans in the loop or at least minimize their interventions? And so this is kind of the big question of this talk. So I will be discussing these questions for fine-tuning of large language models, or RAGs, to answer expert Q&A task. This is a classical task in machine learning. So you have a very confined domain. So for example, I don't know, cars or something like that. And you want to essentially pass this expert knowledge to a large language model. So this is a new expert knowledge. So it means that the LLM has not been trained with this data. This is a new data, kind of. This is a new expert knowledge, and you want to pass this knowledge to a model. So how would you do that? So the system that we envision to minimize human feedback or expert feedback is as follows. So of course, the LLMs are here to answer our questions or queries. And so you have users querying the system. The system is composed by a model, but it's also composed by some data sets collected up to the time where the questions arrives. Okay. The data set about this expert domain. The system has two possibilities. Either it can guess the answer to the query, so it will answer without the intervention of the human. So you will answer, let's say, I hat, and then directly send this answer to the user. Or you have the possibility to say, okay, I'm not confident enough for this answer, so I will ask an expert that is essentially a real expert that will provide actually the right answer to the user. Okay? But of course, you would like to minimize this thing here. You would like to minimize the intervention of the experts because these are the expensive part of the system. So initially, the system cannot answer any question. So you understand that this data set here is completely empty. So if you have no idea about the data set, so of course, initially, you will ask the expert a lot of times. But as the data set is growing up, because you will put the answer of the expert in the data set, you will have more and more knowledge, and you will potentially try to guess the answer yourself. The system will try to guess the answer itself without intervention of the expert. And the question is how much human intervention is needed to actually minimize the overall cost of the system. Okay, so it works like an online classification problem as follows. So in each round, so you have a sequence of questions arriving to the system, and you have the system has to answer these questions. So in round T, bigger than 1, the query is arriving to the system. So we use LLMs, so it means that the query will be kind of passed through the LLM, and from this LLM we extract an embedding. So each question or each query would be represented by its corresponding embedding, Qt for round T, in an embedding space of dimension D. Okay? And we assume that the queries are kind of IID generated by an unknown distribution mu. We also assume that for this particular domain, or expert domain, there is n possible answers. Okay. So this is really a classification problem. You have a query Qt, you want to find the right answer, the right label. Okay, so what's happening next? After the questions arrive at time t, the agents, the system has to guess with or without the expert guidance. So at its disposal, you have the dataset dt that is composed by the query label pairs that the expert label up to time t. So we know that the expert answered queries correctly because he's the expert. So we put the corresponding question and answer in the dataset when it's happening. So there are two decisions for the system. Either you ask the expert, in which case the expert gives the correct label, okay, the correct answer, and we append to the dataset the question and answer pair to it. The second decision is guess. So you will maybe try, based on the question, you can say, oh, I don't need the expert to answer. So let's just guess the answer without the expert guidance. What is important to realize in this kind of system is that in this case, we have absolutely zero feedback from the user. The user doesn't know, he's asking the query. So if he's asking a question, he doesn't know the answer by definition. So when you give the answer to the user the user has no feedback, okay? All right, so is it clear? This is the system model, if you like. Queries arrive sequentially according to some distribution, and you can either guess or ask the expert to answer the query. Okay, so you don't observe the reward because there is no feedback from the user. You know that the answer is correct whenever you ask the expert. That's what you know. So we have, of course, to build a cost function. The cost is arbitrary. So we have a cost for calling the expert, alpha. So it could be a reward of -1, for example. we have a cost of providing a wrong answer that should be higher than the cost of calling the expert. Otherwise, you will never call the expert because you don't care. So minus 10, for example. But, or you have a reward of getting the answer right, and plus 1. And so if you have an algorithm pi, so an algorithm pi is the algorithm that essentially drives what the system is doing here. Okay. You get the reward r pi of t. Okay. And your objective is to kind of minimize regret in this problem. Regret is going to quantify the total cost that you have to pay to pass the expert knowledge to your system. Okay? So it's defined as the difference of reward up to the t first round of an oracle that knows all the answer correctly. So it's collecting a reward beta every query, minus the accumulated reward of your algorithm. So this is the classical kind of definition of regret, if you like. Any questions so far? No? Yes, please. Yes, yes. You can commit suicide and guess the answer without asking your professor. Yes, yes. But this is yes. Yes, yes. The entire problem is when should you stop asking your professor questions, and when should you be independent? Kind of. That's how do you kind of thin this process of asking, and what is the optimal way of doing it? Okay? This is the expression for r pi of t. Alpha, if it's correct, and if you call the expert. Gamma, if you have a wrong answer. And beta, if you have a correct answer. That's all I can say. There is no mathematical expression yet. Absolutely. No, but the algorithm pi is going to learn. So at time t, this guess is not a single action. You have to do a lot of stuff to guess. How do you guess? That's the thing. So how do you guess, and how do you decide that your guessing is not good enough, so that you have to ask the expert? So intuitively, okay, imagine that you have a data set with a lot of questions that resemble the questions that you have to treat now. You compare the embedding and you say, the embedding are the same. I can safely say this is the correct answer. Okay, this rough intuition. Yeah, the algorithm decides how to guess and when to ask. So you mean reward 0 or something like that? Yeah, but then what cost would you put on this passing? I mean, for me, not answering is even worse than giving a wrong answer. Yeah, you don't learn anything when you pass, because anyway there is no feedback. So I mean, yeah. Yeah, but then this is the right strategy when the cost of not answering is smaller than minus 10. That's, I mean, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we didn't think about it because we always have to answer. It's in our culture. I think in India more than in Europe. When you ask a question, you get an answer. Yes? Sorry? Yes. No, of course, no. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, this is, you don't need, so what I say is that you have a reward function. Sometimes you have rewards that you cannot observe, okay? And that's okay. That's what I'm saying. Sometimes we don't observe the reward. This is not part of the, this is worse than a bandit problem in a sense. But this is life. I mean, sometimes you learn something. I mean, this is a practical scenario, right? I mean, you learn something, but you cannot really quantify the reward that you get out of your work. You will get it maybe later on. Here, the reward feedback, the way you receive reward for the algorithm is as it is. So there is no feedback. So it means that you don't know. When you guess, you have absolutely no certainty whether you give the correct answer or not. And this is part of your algorithm takes the information available to it, to you to decide. And in this case, there is no reward feedback sometimes. Is it clear? Sorry? No. The algorithm give an answer, and the algorithms gets no feedback on the correctness of this answer. And despite of that, you want the algorithm to improve over time. Sometimes you get the right answer because you ask the expert. So in such case, you are sure that the answer is correct. So the only thing that you have to base your decisions upon is the data set that you build on query answer given by the expert. Okay.
One other question with respect to the embedding of the label.
Yeah.
Is it a static, is it a partition of the embedding space into the label?
Yeah,
or
I
is there
will
noise?
come to this, yes. Yeah. So yeah, this is what the expert labeling policy is. We have to do assumptions if we want to compute regret or stuff like that. So the expert labeling policy, we assume that it's dictated by a partition made of convex polytopes. So it means that for each possible answer, there is a convex polytopes such that if the embedding of the question is in this particular convex polytope, then the answer must be associated to one. So if the query is falling in, the embedding falls into this convex polytope C1, the answer is 1. The correct answer is 1. And of course, they are not overlapping, and they are a partition of some set E. Okay? And of course, what is unknown to the algorithm and the agent is the partition. And this is essentially what you want to learn. So whenever Qt is in CI, the expert provides label I. Okay? Okay, so an example is, for example, if you think that the embedding space is a unit sphere, and if you assume that the questions or answer can be corresponds to some kind of seed points, then maybe a good candidate for the convex polytope would be the Voronoi tessellation of the sphere. Okay, but that's not really important for our analysis. What we need is that we have convex polytopes for the correct answer. Sorry? Seed point of the tessellation are the centers of the cell. So in a Voronoi tessellation, you put points, and then the boundaries are just the hyperplanes that separate the space in equal distance from the seeds. Okay, that's how Voronoi tessellation is formed. Okay. So yeah. All right. So a bit of intuition about algorithm design. So this is a paper from 2021, and it's, I think, probably a very good result when you have to think about high-dimensional statistics. So imagine that you throw points randomly at random in an hypercube of dimension d. Then imagine that now from these points, n points, you form the convex polytope. Okay. Then, if you look at the volume of the convex polytope, we know that it's going to be negligible unless the number of samples grows exponentially in the dimension. So what it means is that when you are in dimension d, unless you have exponential d example inside your polytope, you have no clue about the shape of your polytope. Okay? Yeah? So what it means is that if you want to learn the geometry of the tessellation, you need at least an exponential d number of points in each convex polytope. So learning the structure, learning this is very difficult because you need for each polytope, the questions are arriving randomly, uniformly, let's say, and so the number of points needed to kind of guess what is the structure of the cell would at least scale as exponential d. Okay? All right. So this is a nice result, but it's very recent, and I think it has a lot of consequences in high-dimensional statistics. So what it means for us is that if you have a time horizon that is very large, then when you have more than exponential d points, then volumes will emerge. Okay? You can form the polytope that gave you the same answer, and you know that this polytope would be inside the Voronoi cell that you are trying to estimate. And this volume is not empty, so it's not negligible, so it's kind of a good information. So we try to learn the volume emerge, and so the shape of the Voronoi tessellation is kind of emerging to it. And for this kind of regime, we have an algorithm that we call the CHC, Conservative Hull-Based Classifier Algorithm. If your time horizon is smaller than exponential d, then you cannot do much except have a center-based approach, because you will never learn the shape of cells because you don't have any points to have a decent structure. The volume of the points that are the volumes of the convex polytope formed by the queries that give the same answer would be negligible. So it's like a point, if you want. Okay? Clear? Okay, so this is the CHC algorithm, a large horizon algorithm. So it's a very stupid algorithm. So it's guessing only when it's sure. Okay? So when are you sure? You are sure when essentially so at time t, from the data set, you can infer what is the convex hull of all possible queries that for which the expert gave the answer I. We denote that by QIT. Then if the question is in one of these convex polytopes, you are sure that the correct answer is I, and then you answer I, okay? And if not, then you ask the expert, and then you get another point. Pictorially, it looks like this. So this is the CHC at time 200. You have 200 points here. You see the tessellation here, okay? This is what you want to learn. And after 200 expert feedback, you can form these kind of convex polytopes that corresponds to the convex polytopes of questions corresponding to the same answer of the expert. And what the algorithm is doing is that if the query is here, then I would answer this, the green. If it's here, I would guess. If it's here, I would answer, I don't know the color, blue, etc., etc. Okay, it's clear. Right? Okay. No, I mean, this is an algorithm. I mean, it's like, yes, it's probably because of the -10, but this is, I think, a choice. I mean, this is a very interesting algorithm in a sense. This is the most naive algorithm you could think of in a sense. Yeah. You see that this algorithm will not work in high dimension because there is no volume. So there is a very, very, very tiny probability that your point is not in the white area. Where yes, exactly. So. Sorry? Yeah, most cautious. Yes, yes, exactly. But we want to have the convex all in the name, so that's why we said, yeah. But this is the most cautious algorithm.
There's two classes, you're just going to get hyperplanes.
Yes.
Separation.
Yeah.
So how does that, how do the number of classes enter into the picture?
Well, the number of classes enter into the picture, into the Voronoi tessellation, for example. But we don't care. I mean, you assume that the set of answers provided by the set of questions corresponding to one answer is a convex polytope. That's the only assumption. Okay? So you have n convex polytope to learn, essentially. Okay, so we will analyze the regret of this algorithm. And to do that, you understand that what's important for you, since the algorithm is always right, is always giving the right answer, we will never have the cost of giving wrong answer, right? So the only cost is, or the only regret is generated by the cost of calling the expert, in this case. And calling the expert is, at a given time, it corresponds to the probability of the query to fall into the white area. So to know the regret, you will need to compute, to assess, estimate what is the surface, what is the volume of the white area. Okay. And to do that, we need a notion of flags of polytopes. So I can tell you what it is. A flag P of a polytope is a sequence of faces of dimension 0 to d minus 1, such that, so the dimension is increasing, incremented by 1 each time, and they are included with each other. Okay? So faces of a polytope, for example, a cube, 0-dimension faces are vertex of the cube. The 1-dimensional faces of the cubes are the 12 edges of the cube, and that's it. Okay. So how many flags do we have? The flag is what you get here. This is the flags are these guys, actually, the end of the sequence. And so if you look at the square, for example, in 2 dimension, you start by building the vertex, 0 dimension. And then the second thing that you do is that you build the faces, so of dimension d minus 1, so here 1. So these are these segments. So you have 8 flags for a square in dimension 2. For a polytope in dimension 2 with L edges, then you would have something. I don't. So 2 times L probably, something like that. Okay. All right. So the flags are going to be important in the regret analysis. And this is the regret analysis of the algorithm. If mu, the generating query distribution, is absolutely continuous with respect to Lebesgue measure, then, for example, if the embedding space is an hypercube, then the regret is bounded by this quantity. So the dependence in T is log to the power dt, okay? And the prefactor is the sum, is a factor that includes the sum of the number of flags for each convex polytope. Okay. I will explain a little bit the proof, but okay. So if the embedding space is a sphere, you have a similar result, actually. Okay. So this is a kind of nice and kind of surprising result, but actually the proof is kind of not difficult. The regret, as I said, of this cautious, most cautious algorithm is that it never do any mistake. So the price to pay is the reward of guessing right minus the reward of calling the expert times the expected number of times you call the expert. And the number of times you call the expert is the sum over time and sum over convex polytope of mu of the complementary of the convex polytope in the cell. Okay? So this is the thing that you want to compute. Essentially, what I'm saying is that the white area is the sum of all the area within this Voronoi cell. And what we do is that we are going to say what is the, we have concentration result on this volume at some time t. Okay? All right. So the proof is this, and it's leveraging a proposition by Barani and Bucha in 93. If you have a convex polytope of Rd, if you take n points uniformly at random from this inside this polytope, then if you look at the expected Lebesgue measure of P minus Pn, so exactly the white area, if you like, then it has the number of flags, it has some stuff, etc., etc. So you see that you have n here. Of course, n will be, you have to work a little bit because the algorithm is adaptive and stuff like that. But the flags are here, kind of. One additional thing is that this result is essentially based on uniformly at random, but our mu is not uniformly uniform. So you have to have some kind of rejection sampling argument or important sampling argument to kind of adapt this kind of result to our case. But we are looking for other ways to do it. Okay? All right. What we did, what was a bit stronger, is that we managed to bound the number of flags in dimension d by some quantity. So we get minimax upper bound of the regret, and this is what we get. So this is a minimax regret upper bound that does not depend on the convex hole and so on, because we managed to upper bound the number of flags in polytopes. Okay, and this is for the hypercube and for the sphere. Okay. All right, so this is good news in a sense because the regret is scaling as log to the power dt. There are prefactors that are kind of depending on the dimension and stuff. We don't expect to have good result because this algorithm is good only in small dimension. So when the dimension goes big, we don't expect this to be tight at all. Yeah. Okay. So what we did is a very precise analysis in dimension 1. And we prove that the regret of the algorithm is like this. Beta minus alpha is just, the difference between calling and not calling the expert. And we have n log t, okay? N is number of cells. And so we also prove a minimax lower bound for this. So this algorithm is actually optimal in dimension 1. Okay. So what do we do in moderate time horizon? Because remember that nowadays the embeddings of LLMs, the dimension, for example, for even a small model is like 4,000. So you are not going to wait for exponential 4,000 question to get something. So what you can do is to have a centroid approach as well. So and we have a simple algorithm that do a commit and explore. No, explore and commit, sorry. So you will call the expert a certain number of times until the number of queries for the same answer is exceeding some threshold. The threshold is based on a number that is d plus log t. So if you know linear bandit, this is really like what the natural quantities that emerge. And then there is also the minimum gap between the distance between the seeds generating the Voronoi tessellation. If the distance is very small, then maybe you need more samples from this cell. Okay? And the phase 2 is that you commit. So after you have gathered enough data, you will do a nearest neighbor algorithm based on this estimated center. That's it. Huh? And we managed to analyze this algorithm as well for sub-Gaussian mixture, mu. Okay? And this is the result. And I think it's an even nicer result in a sense because the dimension is kind of linear dependence in the dimension, so that's good. So you have d plus log t, okay? You have delta mean square. Anyone knows about this. This is optimal. You cannot do better. You will pay the 1 over delta square, the minimum gap between the two hypotheses that you want to distinguish. And that's it, okay? So these terms here, you have a linear term in t, but when the horizon is small, this is smaller than exponential d, then essentially it's going to be a constant. So this is what we say here. If t is smaller than exponential d, if the mixture centers are sufficiently separated, and these we have good arguments to argue why, then we have a regret that is scaling like this, and it's kind of finite. It's kind of good. Okay, so there are other ways to deal with dimension. We wanted to design an algorithm that performs well in both scenarios, when the dimension is small and dimension is big, or alternately, equivalently when the budget is smaller than exponential d or much larger than exponential d. So this is another algorithm we call generalized whole-based classifier. So we will keep the convex whole formed by the previous questions, and we will essentially deal with the questions or deals with the decision to ask the expert a bit differently. So you maintain, again, the convex whole of all the queries for which you answered, the experts answered I. And if you have a new query Qt, you will compare the distance to this whole for answer I to the other convex whole. And if it's smaller than tau times this, if the minimum distance is smaller than a threshold times the distance of the second minimum distance, you say, okay, I'm pretty sure I should answer I. Okay. Otherwise, you test. So by playing with this threshold, you see that we can move from essentially the first algorithm and the second algorithm. Okay, so this is an illustration of the algorithm. In the gray area, you call the expert. In the green area, you have correct guess. Okay, and in the green area are the areas where essentially you decide not to probe the expert. Okay, so if I am here, you see that I am outside the convex hole here, but still I decide that I am far away from this cluster here enough so that I can be sure that actually this convex hole is correct, corresponds to the correct answer. That's what it means. Okay, we don't have an analysis of the regret of this algorithm, unfortunately, but okay. So, yeah. I'm fast, that's good. Do you have any questions? Yes?
So, can the experts intersect?
What do you mean intersect?
Can there exist one expert who is intelligent in many areas? Expert is always in the right place. That's the goal.
Oh, only one.
There is one expert, or a bunch of experts if you
So
want.
always give the right place. If you ask the question, you should answer.
Oh, okay.
More questions? Yes?
So could you design a sequence of queries to minimize the white space in the shortest possible span of
Least possible time.
Yeah, the active learning part, yes. You start with no knowledge. So I don't think you can, actually. I mean, you can when your budget is very, very big. Because to be able to actually do something intelligent in active learning, you have to build, active learning, when you want to be optimal in active learning, essentially you apply some kind of, this certainty equivalence principle in control that is saying, oh, I have this knowledge about the system, and based on this knowledge, I know what is the optimal active query that I can do. But I tell you that you have the building a knowledge of the system, it requires a lot of sample initially. So maybe, I'm thinking out loud now.
Initially, you will put few random queries and say you have a picture.
Yeah, and then you will,
here,
you
and
will
then
form.
now you start.
So what you would do initially, you would form centroids, and then based on this, maybe active queries in the middle, something like that. Yes, that's a good point. Yeah, but the analysis is already super complex, so I don't know, but it's a good point. Yes, yes.
Whenever we got an answer from the expert,
Yeah,
we included that into the data set, right?
you're right.
So what if the answer from the expert is wrong? How we can verify on that front?
Yeah, if you don't know, I mean, you have no you have no mean of saying anything. Yeah, we could another alternative would be like, okay, you have you have two experts. You have a weak expert and a strong expert. So so you could ask a weak expert. Maybe the weak expert has a probability P of being wrong, okay, but it has less cost of querying than the strong expert. Okay, like if I ask Rajesh, a very strong expert, I'm sure that I'm going to get the right answer. If I ask a master student, maybe with probability 0.6. Okay, so if you have only one expert and it's weak, then I mean the entire thing breaks down. But you could have decision processes like this where essentially you want to leverage different level of expertise. And there is of course it's in crowdsourcing systems, they are doing this. They try to assess the level of expertise of their expert, and then they try to route the queries to these different experts. But yeah, this is a bit out of the scope of the. Yeah. Yeah.
On the question of targeted queries or active queries. Active querying will put you in general position in the sense that you're going to get volume, but the volume is small. That's what that result is saying.
Yeah.
And so no amount of finite active querying or lesser than that exponential scale is going to give you significant volume. It seems like maybe active querying may not work that way. It might be as bad as random querying.
I don't know. I mean, the idea of forming initially centroid and then querying just in the middle, it's not so clear because the cost of expert would be higher if you ask difficult questions. That's the concern. That active learning could work. Statistically, you will improve probably after T queries. You would have a better expert model. But maybe the cost of the expert, I mean, it's an interesting question, yeah, actually. Okay, where was I? Yes, here. Yes, so, here. So yes, we implemented this. This is what I said earlier. We did actually the system work before the theoretical work, but in the paper, in the current submission, we implemented the algorithm and some kind of benchmark algorithm as well, using synthetic and real data set. This is synthetic data for various dimensions, low dimension 1 to 50. And we have tessellation and so on. Mu is a mixture of truncated Gaussian and so on. And this is what we compare the three algorithm and sequential k-mean, which is just applying k-means and not asking the expert at all. Okay, so it's just doing sequential k-mean. What's the price of paying? And you have to pay when you do sequential k-means. And these are the results. So essentially, the last algorithm that I propose is much better than the rest. In low dimension, you see, ETC is actually CC, sorry. It's explore then commit. ETC is working very badly in low dimension, but that was expected because it's done for high dimension. CHC work well, but the performance deteriorate as you increase the dimension. So everything that we had kind of in mind intuitively is seen on this table. Okay, more importantly, we did it experiment with real data. So you have a lot of data on quick question and answer Q&A in existing. So we use Quora, we use ComQA, and other benchmark data sets. The data sets are very heterogeneous in the sense that the number of questions per group varies in this data set. So you have very different kinds of data set, let's say. For the LLM, we use embeddings that comes from different models, E5, Nomic, Mistral E5. This is the largest that we tried, actually, with only 7 billion parameters. And but a dimension of 4,000 already. So, and this is the result of the regret as a function of the threshold. So if the threshold is 1, this corresponds more or less to the centroid problem. If it's 0, it corresponds to the CHC algorithm. So you see that in a high dimension, you really need to find the right trade-off between the two kinds of algorithm. You have to wait. You have to find a threshold that is kind of good. But again, we don't have regret analysis of this algorithm. This is the regret as function of time. So it's really, yeah, it has the right shape. It's logarithmic, you know. And this is for other kinds of data sets. So you have similar things. And the threshold is kind of always in this range between 0.6 and 0.9. So, and we don't have any explanation on this. Okay. All right. So this is the end of the talk, actually. I wanted to formulate an online optimization problem to actually minimize human intervention in LLS-based systems. I think that when you do RLHF, you assume that, well, I mean, you ask humans to answer every time, and this is extremely costly. And actually, as you want to teach your model many things at the same time, maybe this is too costly. So this is, I think, one of the first paper on this topic, kind of. What was nice is to dig into this kind of random geometry arguments to compute the regret. And then these stochastic geometry arguments, they give you a feel of or intuition on what is the algorithm that works or not, depending on the dimension and the time horizon. Yes. So I think that there will be a lot more problems in the context of fine-tuning or adapting large models, large foundation models, using human feedback. And I think that it's kind of a nice kind of area to work with for us who are doing sequential decision-making. And that's it. I will stop here, and I'm happy to take your questions.
Thank you very much, Professor, for giving an interesting talk and answering all questions. Are there any more questions?
So that request distribution,
Yes.
mu, are there some assumptions on mu?
So depending on the algorithm, the regrets that we, yes, I mean, so here, for example, we assume that mu is a mixture of Gaussian or sub-Gaussians.
So
Okay.
can you intuitively explain why that is needed?
Why this is needed? I mean, the mixture of Gaussian will naturally separate the different clusters corresponding to the answer. So this is kind of an online clustering with sub-Gaussian, so you can use a nice concentration result about sub-Gaussian and stuff like that. So that's one thing. And that's why we have so clean result here. If it was not sub-Gaussian, then we would have a very different term here. It would be a bit messy, I think. But I think that sub-Gaussian mixture is kind of a good approximation of real life, because when you think about it, I mean, the questions, the embedding of the questions would be kind of centered around the typical questions for the typical answer. And that's, I'm not worried about this. For the other theorem, they were actually stronger because we don't assume anything except that they are absolutely continuous with respect to Lebesgue measure. So in particular, this is not a clustering problem anymore. So imagine that mu is uniform. Okay, you see that it's not about clustering. You assume that the data that you have is essentially clustered. So it's as if you would like to cluster a map of points that is taken uniformly at random. Why, you know? And so the cluster structure that you have with using mixture is helping a lot to decrease the regret. This is what we see in the theorem. But we managed to derive theorem for any mu, which is kind of nice too. And again, it's just because of these stochastic geometry formulas that are nice. Yeah.
Professor, so one doubt is like the way we are basically trying to cover the space, the data space, so that whenever the new question is arriving, if it is significantly far from the existing questions, then we are trying to like answer it by expert. That's what eventually we are doing. But when we talk in terms of LLM perspective, it may happen that we might have given certain data points to the LLM, but it has not been learned from that data sets properly. And also there is another problem that the transfer learning sort of thing, where people have actually seen that training on LLM on particular task may give you a significant boost on the other task rather than training on the target task itself. So those things, so can we capture these type of behaviors of current LLM in this setting?
To be honest, I don't think so. So there is something I didn't say. I mean, you can actually fine-tune your LLM using these techniques, or you can just apply a sequential decision problems that is based on your data set. Maybe you don't update the weight of the LLM. So what you are referring to is really classical fine-tuning of LLMs. Okay. What I'm doing here is RAG. So LLM coupled with this small data set. Okay. So I would argue the contrary. Generally, when you fine-tune LLM for a particular task, it's generally doing worse for other tasks. This is a catastrophic forgetting kind of phenomena. So I think it's not so bad to actually separate knowledge. You know, I mean, your brain capacity is decreasing over time because you are more than 20 or something like that. So maybe the only thing that I can I cannot change your brain, but I can add some kind of memory to help you, some kind of data set that will help you to answer questions. This is what we are doing here. Okay. We are not acting on the LLM itself, but we are kind of using it, and we couple it with a sequential decision algorithm. Yeah. Yes. Sorry?
Policy to decide whether to guess or to go to the expert
Yes.
is independent of the mu. The mu.
Absolutely. Mu is not known. And we don't learn the mu. No. Yeah, you don't learn a distribution in D dimension. Yeah.
Yeah, so somehow I was thinking that in the convex hull you don't ask a question, right? Because you know you're
You
right,
are there.
and-
You are
and-
there.
And
Yes.
outside you always guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how feasible, but I would think that you might want to put some probability on how far away you're from the convex hull, right? And then you go closer and closer to the boundary with higher probability ask question while
Yeah, this is exactly what we do in this algorithm, the final algorithm that we propose.
this tau is
This
what
one,
is
this
acting
tau.
as the, yeah.
This tau is kind of enlarging arbitrarily the
Instead of convex hull,
polytope.
you're expanding the
Yeah.
volume, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So this would be similar, yes.
One more question, just to follow up on the previous one.
Mm.
Mu could be arbitrary.
Yeah.
I mean, you had some assumptions there. But typically in real life, the samples are going to be associated with the class
Absolutely.
that you have to classify towards.
Yeah, yeah.
So every sample should then yield some additional information that should also guide you in the classification or going to the expert or not. So how would you formulate bringing in a dependence between, like for example, you said Gaussian clusters.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe the classes are associated with those clusters, and we are trying to.
That's a very good point, actually. Yes, yes. I think that if I understand your question is that we don't use the questions that are for which we guess in the decisions, but we could use it because maybe after we can cluster them. We can use clustering algorithm to actually.
Yeah, if the mu clusters are somehow connected to the C's.
That's a very good idea. Yeah, we will. I will try to think about that because, as you know, I mean, we have a lot of work on performance of clustering. So I know exactly the error rate of clustering for optimal error rate. So we can try to leverage this knowledge. It's not sure that, I mean, for simplicity, initially we say, okay, we are going to use the queries for which we have the right label, but we could indeed think of, okay, if the data is clustered, then leverage the structure as we go, without even asking for the expert. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, if you think of a clustering problem, essentially an algorithm would be, okay, I receive a lot of questions, I cluster them, then I pick one question per cluster, I ask the expert, please give me the answer, and then after that I have everything, okay? But yeah, that's a very good point, yes. But yeah, the time it takes for you to learn the clusters, I'm not so sure, because for me, I think it would kind of learn the geometry, so you have to, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's true. Yeah, very good point. It's very good. Yeah. So sorry, can you? The mic is not working.
Your whole assumption was that the queries asked, they are coming from an unknown single distribution.
Yes.
But you're associating the embeddings of the queries to a complex polytope.
Yeah.
So a question of having a query that is out of distribution doesn't arise in this.
No, there is no question about that, no. I mean, the algorithm is very robust to questions that are a bit off and stuff. I mean, because questions that are out of this, it's very I don't know how to answer this, but I think that even we could analyze the regret using adversarial queries, actually. I think that there is a way to get rid of this assumption, if you want, but the regret will not be that nice, actually.
So in this whole topic, so what is actually training? I didn't see the role of training here.
So we are training the algorithm to essentially learn to get rid of the expert as soon as possible. So as you have learned the region corresponding to the various answers, you can actually get rid of the expert. That's the idea. Okay, it's 6 and I think Parimal has to go on vacation. But we can let him go and then have more questions.
Thank you once again, Professor, for
thank you very
accepting.
much.
So we have arranged refreshments at Coffee Hut. Please continue your conversations there. Thank you all and have a great evening.